Hello everyone, and welcome to the official Insurance Toolkits demo video. This video is current as of the end of July 2022, so if you are watching this video at a later date, things can update and change as we do work on the system every day. So if you do have any questions about what might have changed or something new that you might see in your system at a later date, you can always use our live chat system or send us a message directly through the website at the bottom right here. So what we're going to be looking at today is our platform on the website, which is what you will all use on whether you're on your iPad, your computer, or even on your iPhone you can access, or your Android device, you can access the website. We do have a mobile app. You can see the mobile app here. This is my Mac, so I'm able to open up the app. We're not going to be going over the app today. It does all or most of the same things that the website does, just in a more condensed interface. So if you do have an iPhone or an Android device, make sure you download the app. But as mentioned before, if you're on an iPad, make sure to use the website as I'm going to go over today. So, as mentioned before, if you do need to contact us for any reason, whether it's while using the software before or after sitting with a client, you can use our live chat system here, which we are on during basically all day, Monday through Saturday. You can also send a message at the bottom of the website here, or directly to my email, which is joe@fextoolkit.com. Additionally, during this video, if I go too fast or too slow, make sure you click on the settings icon at the bottom right side of this video, and you can slow me down or speed me up to your liking. In addition, you can click through the chapters of this video, as in YouTube. If you scroll over the time frame of the video, I'm going to mark each segment of this video with a timestamp, so if you want to skip past a part or go back to a part, you can do so fairly easily, because again, I am going to cover everything, or as much as everything as I can in this video. So the first thing we're going to do is log in, and I'm going to log into my account, and it takes me to my account here. So you can see at the top of the screen are the different toolkits, so Fex, Term, Med Supp, Dental, Vision, Hearing, and Hospital Indemnity. If you don't see one of these, you might have signed up under an agency who might restrict your access, or if anything I'm showing you today doesn't appear in your account, certain agencies have different customizations. So if you ever see a customization you're confused about, or you don't see one of the toolkits shown, you can always send a message again to us and we can assist you. There are various ways we can help you with that. Additionally, if you do have an agency, or if your agency doesn't have a code with us, most agencies have promo codes, they can simply reach out to us. We don't charge anything to create that. We offer included white labeling, custom carriers, depending on the agents that sign up with your code, and several other features as well if you do have an agency, or if your agency does not yet have a code with us. With that said, you want to make sure you go under your account tab here, and under the account tab you find your referral link. So if you ever want to refer someone to the system, you can use the link and receive a $20 account credit for every person that completes the trial. If you're a telesales agent, make sure you turn on the toggle, and make sure to set your default state if you normally sell in your home state or wherever you may end up going to sell. The first toolkit that we're going to take a look at is the FexToolkit. So a lot of the things that I'm going to show on the Fex side carry over to Term and Med Supp. Dental, Vision, Hearing, and Hospital Indemnity are kind of their own thing, which we will go over shortly. But you'll see on the Fex side we have the quoter, the quote compare, the drug lookup, and the health cheat sheet. The settings and customized carriers are simply where you turn off or on the carriers that you want to show. So for example here, we're going to turn off a few of the American Amicables just because there's so many of them. We only want to see, we'll say Family Choice, and we'll keep Senior Choice turned on as well. So we have that down here, and we'll go through the rest of the carriers here as you can see me scrolling, but I'm going to leave them all turned on. So there are a number of carriers, and basically no one using our system is contracted to sell all of them, so always make sure to turn off what you don't use. Unless you're really curious about what a carrier might be offering, you can leave it turned on. And you have to customize in each toolkit. So if I wanted to customize my term carriers, I would go to Term, Customize, and I would do so here. So each toolkit has its own customization page. In terms of the extra tools, the quote compare tool we're going to cover shortly. However, you can go directly to it by clicking on it, as you can up here. The drug lookup tool, you can quickly look up one or two medications. So real quick, if I wanted to look up, for example, lisinopril. Let's say my client had a heart attack several years ago and they're still taking it for maintenance. It's more for blood pressure, but in this case, we can hit lookup and it will show me the carriers that my client will qualify for based on one or more medications that you can enter. The health cheat sheet, we can enter something like congestive heart failure, and it'll show you our entire backend. So for all the carriers, how they'll treat it, what time frame they'll treat it. If there's any follow-up questions, we'll show you those here as well. However, you're going to spend most of your time in the quoter itself, which builds in all of these tools into one. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to clear out my previous entry, and we're going to run a basic level quote. So let's say I don't need to put in any underwriting information. I just want to know, what can my client get for $10,000 in the state of Ohio? Let's say we're looking at a 65-year-old male, non-smoker. We're not going to put in the height, weight, or the, we'll just leave it as bank draft in this case. I hit get quote. When I hit get quote, I'm brought up to my carrier options. So we'll sort the carriers by lowest price first, highest price at the bottom, if you're running a manual quote for level or rated modified. Underwritten quotes are a little bit different, which we will go over. You can see there's a few different basic features of the quoter, so we do highlight those carriers that do support Social Security billing, which can be important. And there will be some other features on the tile that we're going to show when I run an underwritten quote. For now, though, you can see that we have the EAP button here and the compare button over here as well. When you click the expand arrow, we'll show you more information about that company. So some carriers, you can see here with Great Western, they offer an accidental rate. We'll show you the accidental, which is built in. Some carriers offer even more than that. So if we scroll all the way up here to Sentinel, you can see that they offer a 20 pay, a 10 pay, a paid up at 85. So we'll show you all the different options for that carrier, and we'll cover push to CRM in just a little bit as well. So I'm going to scroll back up here, and I am going to enter diabetes. So like, let's say my client doesn't know what medication they take for their diabetes. So we're just going to enter it as a health condition. This is a pretty common question that we get. You know, if I have the medications, can I just enter the medications, or do I also have to enter the health condition? So just to show you an example here, the most common medication taken for diabetes is metformin. So when I hit metformin, you'll see we ask what the indication for that medication is. So diabetes no complications is the same thing down here as it is up here. However, medications can sometimes mean different things to carriers than they might mean to the client and their understanding of why they take that medication. So it's always best to enter the medications if you have them, especially for carriers. Liberty Bankers is a good example. They often deviate from even the true reason the medication can be taken. They'll treat it, for example, multiple sclerosis. Liberty Bankers will decline basically every medication you can take for MS, but on the app, it's modified. So you always want to make sure to key in the meds when you have them. Otherwise, put in a health condition, or it might be something that you can't take a medication for, such as wheelchair use or a few things we're going to cover shortly. But for now, we're going to put in the health condition. So let's say the client has diabetes and they have no complications. Let's say they take their metformin every day, so the date of last treatment, as it is for most chronic conditions, is left as today. Let's say they were diagnosed, this person is 65, let's say about 10 years ago. So they were diagnosed in 2012. It doesn't have to be exact once you go back a year or two, or more than a year or two. Insulin use, we'll say, let's first say no. So when we say no, it'll skip over to the next question, which is uncontrolled diabetes. So what you'll notice is our system will ask you for a condition or a medication, then we'll walk you through a chain of questioning, which will help to, as we call it, the reverse funnel, which will help to narrow down, based on the carriers that you have turned on, the pertinent information. So if I don't have a carrier turned on that cares about uncontrolled diabetes, the system isn't going to ask. Now let's go back, and let's say this client actually does take insulin. They forgot that they do, and they wanted to remind you that, oh yes, I do take insulin. So when I hit yes, depending on the carriers I have selected again, we see the question, age insulin use first started. So we're going to say the client first started insulin use at age 54. Now again, depending on the carriers that you have turned on, we'll ask about the units. So let's say this person takes roughly 24 units of insulin a day, and then we get to the rest of our questions. So always answer these questions as accurately as you can, as they are important. We'll say there's no changes in the past year, and they're not taking 3 or more medications. We'll say their latest A1C reading is less than 8%. So now we've asked every relevant question as it pertains to diabetes in the system. So when you run this quote, you're not going to miss any follow-up questions, how a carrier might word their question on their app as opposed to another carrier. You're done. You've entered everything relevant. So when you see that I enter a health condition here, you'll see the coverage type box grays out. When you enter a health condition or a medication, the system will show every carrier's best available option for the product that you have turned on, even the guaranteed issues. So in this case, if I run this quote, I'm going to see several level carriers show up at the top, and I'm going to even see my guaranteed issues at the bottom, because of course AIG was going to take this guaranteed, as well as several other graded and guaranteed issue products. So if I wanted to change this to manually run a graded quote, I would have to remove the underwriting information in order to do that, or the system is just going to show me the best available option. So there are some other features with the system as well. So when you look at the quarter result tiles, as we call them, you can see here that sometimes we'll have a red dot warning. So diabetes might refer this case to underwriting for Sons of Norway simplified issue. So I should prepare to put notes on the app. Or maybe I want to use a different carrier if I don't want to have to put notes. You can see for KSKJ, it rates the policy standard instead of preferred. And the reason is because of insulin use. So we will tell you the reason on the right side of the tile here. There's the familiar Social Security billing star that we mentioned before. And if a policy is graded or modified, we will show you here. So AIG, in this case, we have Simply Now Legacy, which is a graded product, is a return of premium in the first 2 years, so we're going to show you that. We have a few more policies that are similar, some which are a little bit more complex, such as Prosperity Prime Term. So it's always important to mouse over, because every plan is slightly different, generally speaking, in how they treat their graded and modified policies. So always make sure to mouse over if you have any questions at all, and we'll show you what exactly that policy entails in that state, because sometimes states can vary depending on the carrier. So we also want to put in some other medications for this client. Let's say they remember, oh, I take furosemide for high blood pressure as well. So all we do is we type in the medication here, and the client says that they take it for high blood pressure, so we can see that result here. We'll say that the first fill was roughly in 2019, so several years ago. And the total daily dosage. So an easy way to tell if furosemide is taken for congestive heart failure is if the client is taking more than 60 milligram. In this case, we'll say they take 60 or less. Now, a question we get asked a lot too is, well, I typed in this medication and I'm not seeing the condition that the client says they take it for in the toolkit. So I'm going to use an example here, is donepezil. So donepezil is a medication that's taken for Alzheimer's or dementia. So if you have a client saying that they don't have dementia, they're taking it for confusion, well, you can look in the toolkit and see that even if they might be confused, the carrier is going to view the reason that medication is taken as dementia. So it's always important to go by the results the toolkit say, because even in cases where the client might think they're taking it for something, for example, metformin can legitimately be taken for weight loss, but the carriers are going to see it as a diabetic medication for simplified issue products. The fully underwritten route is a little bit different, but for the purposes of simplified issue, you always want to go by what the indications show in the toolkit here. So we're not going to enter donepezil for now, that was just an example, but let's say the client also takes spironolactone. So we're going to enter that medication here. Also for high blood pressure, we're going to click on that, and we'll say the first fill was also roughly 2019. We'll say the client says 2018. So you can see when I enter these two medications, the system suggests CHF. Now, does every single person in the world who's taking furosemide and spironolactone have CHF? No, but it's a pretty good indication that this person doesn't just have high blood pressure. So they might have CHF, they might have another circulatory issue, but whenever something like this comes up in the toolkit, such as the auto add, as we call it, so if you put in, for example, 3 inhalers for mild asthma, we're going to suggest chronic asthma. If you put in gabapentin and metformin, we're going to suggest diabetic neuropathy. So this helps, especially if you're a newer agent. It helps you to kind of learn and understand the rules around underwriting with medications and why medications are so important. Because if you just ask the client, what condition do you have, they might tell you, I have high blood pressure, which is no big deal for any final expense carrier and basically any term carrier as long as they're not taking several medications. But because of these specific 2 medications, we can see that there's probably a circulatory issue that's going on here. And again, likely it's going to be CHF in most cases. So we're also going to enter another condition here. So let's say the client was hospitalized recently. So in this case, there's no medication for hospitalization. So I'm going to enter hospitalization here, and we'll say they were just hospitalized for a surgery. So just basic orthopedic surgery. So I type in surgery here. And you can see if the reason's ever not listed, you can always type other, but orthopedic surgery. And we'll say that they were hospitalized last month, so in June, and we'll say they said the 16th. And they were released June, we'll say the 18th, so they were in for 2 days. And then we answer several questions. We'll say, 2 days, 48 hours, we'll say yes. Confinement 5 or more, we'll say no. More than 5 days of total over the past year, no. No, and we'll just skip through the rest of these here. Again, I do have every carrier turned on, so there's going to be a number of different questions that show up here. But now we've answered every relevant question for the hospitalization for orthopedic surgery. And the last thing we're going to enter is tamoxifen. So tamoxifen is what we call a cancer maintenance medication, which is more commonly taken by women after breast cancer remission. So in this case, we'll say the client had cancer in the past. We'll say they had none of these types. Again, let's just say if we were quoting a female client here, that there was breast cancer. So we'll click Other. We'll say the first fail was back in 2016, so they've been taking it for a while to prevent remission. And then we come back to our fringe questions that we're familiar with at this point. So we'll say cancer more than once, no. Metastatic, no. And we'll say that it was breast cancer, and let's say it did progress past stage 1. So we'll say yes. And let's say when we're about to run this case here, we just go over each condition with the client, and they insist that they do not have CHF. They swear up and down they don't have it. They've been to the doctor. And if you really disagree with the decision, you can always remove the auto-added condition there, just like we did. So that's always something you can do. The toolkit, again, auto-adds those conditions as a suggestion, not as a necessary rule. So we're going to run this case, which is a little bit more complex, but it's still a pretty common final expense case. And when I do so, you can see my carriers come up here. So you're going to see a number of red dots. For example, cancer maintenance medications with MU. They don't really have a hard rule with this, with cancer maintenance medications. So we tell you here, it's going to be a case-by-case decision. It's not going to be a reliable decision with MU. And furosemide might also cause an adverse decision. So a few different notes to have before I potentially submit a living promise application. KSKJ is standard again due to insulin, but we also have a potential referral to an underwriter due to the furosemide. Similarly with CFG, the spironolactone and furosemide might cause a referral. And as we go down the list, we see different suggestions as to what might be referred with which carrier. In some cases, there might be a commission cut for the product. So with Liberty Bankers Modified, if I write this product, my commission might get cut up to 30%. Additionally, this is another good example as to why you should always make sure you know what you're selling before you sell it. Liberty Bankers Modified is structured in a way that no other carrier structures their modified policy, in that in year 5 and 6, the face amount actually increases, which is fairly unheard of for final expense products. And that essentially sums up the different results that you can see on the tile. So it's commission cut, the plan info, why we're showing the result that we're showing, and if applicable, we'll show the red dot, which might indicate that you should leave a comment on the application to explain a certain health condition or medication. So in this case, based on the carriers we have, let's say that I want to write Foresters in this case. I want to put the client with Foresters. So in this case, unfortunately, the e-app is only available for telesales. So maybe I want to pivot. Let's say in this case we want to go with CFG, the Classic Elite plan. That is day 1 coverage. It's got Social Security billing. So that's what we're going to go with. So the first thing I'm going to do, when I go up here, I actually forgot to show this earlier, but you don't have to enter a face amount or a premium, and we actually encourage that you don't when you are just underwriting the client to determine what they qualify for. When you leave these fields blank, we auto-run the case at $15,000. So basically every carrier will show up. And in this case, we don't really care what it says in the monthly column. What we care about is what we're about to quote. So we click on Compare. It'll push me over to the Compare page. And I'm going to enter what I call them as the bronze, silver, gold quotes. So 50, 75, and 100. And you can see all the other information for the quote is pushed over. So when I hit Compare, at this point I would spin around my laptop or my iPad, whatever you happen to use at the point of sale, and I would show the client, this is your bronze option, your silver option, your gold option, which one works best for you. And let's say they say, those rates are pretty good. What can I get for $20,000 if I want to face them out of $20,000? All we would do is go up here, remove the 100 or any field really, run the quote again, and the system will then show you what $20,000 is. And in this case, we can also see the accidental death when I enter the face amount itself, which can always be used as a slight upsell if the client is interested in double indemnity, basically if they pass away in an accident. So this is the tool that you'll use to close down the client. So if I want to show 2 quotes, I can show 2 quotes. If I want to show 3, which is the most common, I can. But at this point, you're kind of making the sale official for the client. So you're showing that you ran it through the system, you processed all their health conditions, you asked them the proper questions. They're basically pre-qualified. You can use that term at the point of sale, and this is when they're picking. So they point to one option. It feels very real, and it's a very effective way to sell. It's very step-by-step, and it makes sense in the client's head. You're shopping for them. You're finding them the best solution. And if I'm ready to go ahead for the eApp, I would just click the eApp button. It would take me over to the eApp system, and I would proceed with the application, which again is done on the carrier system. The applications are not done on our system at this time. So that is more or less our final expense system. It does get a little bit more in depth than that with the underwriting and the quoting, but that's a basic overview. So now we are going to, assuming that we made that sale, we are going to push it over to the CRM. So there's 2 ways to save quotes in the system. The first way is to click the Save button. So in this case, this client, of course, is likely not going to qualify for a term product, especially considering all the different conditions we have in here. But let's say that we pitched the final expense, it didn't work out, the client's more interested in term. So I'm going to go over to the term side. I click Load, and I simply select, it's going to be in my downloads on my computer. I select the file that I just saved, and I click Load to load it back in. So you can see here the extension of the file is a .json file, so if you try to open it on your computer, it won't work. The computer can't read that. So whenever you're loading it back in, make sure you click the Load button here, and I'm going to cancel that. Make sure you click the Load button here to load it back in properly, and then you select the file and click Open. Otherwise, it's unreadable by your computer on its own. So the other way to save quotes, which is the way that you should usually prefer to do it if you can, is to push to CRM. So when I push to CRM, let's say we sold Mr. James Jones, and we're going to leave the other information blank here just for the sake of time. I'm going to click Save. It's saved to my CRM. I head over to my CRM, and we can see there's Mr. James Jones, who I just entered in. We go over to Clients. If we want to expand the selection here, we can view his little tab, so his medical information if I want to revisit at a later date, because as we always say, if you're not following up with your client, someone else is. So you want to make sure that you're always checking in to see if they got their policy, checking in every 6 months to a year to see if they might be interested in more coverage, working your current book, people who you know are paying and you've already sold. But let's say we call Mr. Jones in a month and he's interested in adding on a few thousand more in coverage. He's happy with his policy. He sees that it's legitimate. He got it in the mail. All we would do is click Load Quote, and we're right back to where we were before. So our CRM is not going to replace Go High Level or Agency Block or another fancy system that you use. It's more so just a basic HIPAA compliant solution for you to store your client's drug and health information to be retrieved if you need to at a later date. You can export or import into or out of the CRM as well, and you do have a basic calendar here and a reminder system too. We're not going to go over that in this video as that's not really the point of our system, but a basic CRM that is there if you need to use it. So the term side of the system is structured very similarly to the final expense side in terms of the layout and design. So we have the health condition and medication over here. We have the coverage options. Now, of course, for term, you have your return of premium carriers, so carriers that will give you all the money back at the end of the term. And in this case, let's just say we're running a 35-year-old Ohio male for let's bump it up to 55 for $250,000. So I'm going to run this quote, and we can see several different features on the term side. So we can see in this case I have Transamerica turned on. So this is a carrier, 2 different products here that we don't support for underwriting at this time. So the system will tell me with the red dot that if I enter any underwriting information, it will be excluded. If the carrier has any living benefits with their plan, we will include it with the Plan Info button here. Some products are structured differently, so America Payment Protector is a decreasing term product, which gives the client the option of the monthly income, as they call it, so the monthly death benefit payout to the beneficiary. So again, it's a good example, even on the term side, to mouse over the red dot when you see it. We still have the eApp and Compare buttons over here. And you can mouse through each carrier's living benefits just to make sure you're telling the client the correct thing when you're pitching the policy to them. Now, if I want to change the length of the term that I'm looking at, I can always mouse over the slider here. So 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and 40 years, depending on the carriers that I'm looking at. And depending on the carriers you are looking at, Generally, American Amicable for higher ages, relatively speaking, and face amounts, will require a PHI, or phone health interview. So this is a good example as to, before you submit this application, you want to let the client know, hey, we're going to have to do a phone interview just to verify all the answers on the application. And maybe in that case, you might want to go with a different carrier if that's not something your client wants to do. But it's good to know ahead of time before you pitch a carrier, go all the way through the app, and you don't want to hit any roadblocks, obviously, at that point. So the next toolkit we're going to take a look at is MedSupp. So MedSupp, again, is very similar to the other two in terms of the underwriting side. But on the left, we have the different features of MedSupp laid out. So the zip code system, household discounts. You generally want to enter the birthday of the client if you have it. The effective date of the policy, in this case, we'll say 9/1. We're going to run the quote here just to show you how it looks. And if the carrier has a class rating, we'll show it in this column here. You can see here I entered a client who's 65 in the state of Pennsylvania, so we have a good amount of options available. We have the household discount amount showing here. If I don't want to sort the quotes by household discount, we still show it in the expand menu, as long as the effective date of the most recent rates and the AM Best rating of the carrier. Again, if I want to sort by household discount, I would just turn on this toggle and hit Get Quote again. If there is a policy fee to apply for that policy, we will show it to you here. And most importantly, the household discount rules, which for many carriers will vary based on the state that you're running quotes in. So always make sure that you're conveying to the client the proper household discount rule for the product that you're looking at. Okay, so we are also going to look at dental, vision, and hearing. So dental, vision, hearing is an ancillary product which has no medical information that needs to be entered or pre-qualified for with the client. So in this case, I've pre-ran a quote, so a 65-year-old in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. So when we run this quote, we see a number of different carriers come up. We're not going to go over every feature of the tile, as they're all pretty intuitive and mouse overable. So the network will be shown here if the plan has a network, as well as where you can search to pull up dentists in that network if you do need to. You can view the individual, the specific, more so, features of each policy by clicking on the icons on the left side of the tile. And if there's any more information we want to tell you, just mouse over different aspects of the tile and we'll tell you. And this will help you easily convey different aspects of dental policies, dental, vision, hearing policies to your client, as well as different plans a company might offer. Aetna, as an example, offers dental, vision, hearing, and dental, vision, hearing plus, which is a different product, which has, as you can see, different benefits. So you always want to make sure that you're conveying, again, the proper information to your client, especially if they're looking for something specific like coverage for implants. So if this client wants implant coverage, you probably want to go with the DVH Plus rather than the regular DVH. As you can see here, the regular DVH does not cover implants, whereas the DVH Plus does. And that can be the difference between making a sale and not making a sale. And of course, you want to be able to retain every client that you're able to come across, especially in certain cases where you can see here with Cigna, the 1-year waiting period is waived for major services if you're replacing coverage. So these little things can add up, and they can often be the difference between, again, making a sale and unfortunately losing a client if you don't have all of the information with you at the point of sale. So wrapping up here, we're going to take a quick look at hospital indemnity, which we just pushed up a few days ago. So at this time of the recording of this video, which is the 29th of July, we just have Heartland's product up, but we will be adding GTL, Medico, all the other relevant products over time. A hospital indemnity is something that's typically paired with MedAdvantage. So on many MedAdvantage plans, it's either a lump sum to go into the hospital, assuming they're not in a DSNP, or it's more commonly paid over a number of days. So 5 days, maybe it's $250 a day. So you can structure a policy. So for Mr. Jones, for $22 a month, we can fill in that hospital gap. Even if you go to the emergency room for an accident or injury, it will pay out and cover that gap for you. So for many clients, even if you're just slightly offsetting what they have to pay each day, so maybe $100 for 3 days, hospital indemnity plans are extremely affordable and a great value add, especially if you want to retain your clients. It's great for retention, placing multiple policies in a home. And there's different riders you can add on as well to make the policy a little bit more comprehensive in what it covers as well, because different plans can have different copays, and you always want to fill the gaps the best you can. We do have training videos up on our YouTube channel if you want to check them out on how you can build hospital indemnity into your portfolio, but that is a basic overview of the Toolkits iteration of it. And we already went over the basics of the CRM, but again, you can access the CRM just by clicking the tab up at the top And again, it's HIPAA compliant, so any health information you store is only viewable by you, not your IMO, not us, just you, and you can export it anytime you would like. The last thing I'll mention is that in most of our toolkits, we do offer the tools, the widget. So the widget is TCPA compliant. You can embed it into your website if you'd like. If clients fill out the information here, you do get that information sent to you as a lead. The light link here is something that you can either share with a colleague or send to a client. And just as an example here, assuming this is my phone, let's say I bookmarked it on the browser, I can quickly run a quote without needing to log into an app or open an app even, and it just quickly, briefly shows me the the different policies that I have turned on in a quick format. And again, this works on desktop as well, so if I run it on desktop sizing, you can see all the different carriers here. So again, if you have maybe an new agent doesn't have the toolkit yet, they can run a basic quote using your light link, and that does exist at this time in the Fex, Term, and Med Supp toolkits, not currently in the dental vision hearing or the hospital indemnity toolkits. But as mentioned, this is a complete demo overview of our platform. If there's anything else you have a question about, remember we do offer live demos every day during the week, Monday through Friday. So when you do sign up for your account, you will get an email with that link to sign up for the demo. If you would like a demo and you aren't sure about signing up for an account yet, just send us a message and we will send you that link. I'll also leave it in the description of this video. You can always send us a message on our live chat system or email directly on the contact form on our website, which is at the bottom here. Or you can send myself an email, joe@fextoolkit.com, if you have any further questions or inquiries about the system itself. So we appreciate you watching, and we hope to see you on the system very soon.